So see, in this chapter, we started with an office memorandum which was issued by the government of India, or you can say by a ministry in the government of India. And we have seen the process, how that office memorandum was issued, the steps which were taken before this office memorandum was issued, and the controversy which was created by this office memorandum. Then we talked about the decision makers who would have taken the decision to pass this office memorandum, right? We have also discussed the need for political institutions. Why do we need them? Because there are a lot of functions which have to be performed by the government, but no single organization can perform all the functions. So different institutions or different organizations have different responsibilities in the government, right? Then later, we learned about the parliament. Why do we need the parliament in a democracy? So we have seen many reasons, like it is the final authority for making laws in any country. All the laws which are passed in the country are discussed and debated in the parliament. Then the parliament controls who will form the government. It also keeps a check on the ruling party or the that they are working for the welfare of the people. Third, the finances of a country or the money is controlled by the parliament. The money bill are passed by the Parliament of India, right? Okay. Then we discussed about the two houses of the parliament. If a government or a parliament has two houses, it is known as bicameral legislature. What do we call it? A bicameral legislature. Okay. So in India, you have two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So in the previous classes, we have seen the different functions which are performed by the different houses. We have also seen which house is more powerful. Arohi, which house is more powerful? Okay, Vriddhi, do you know which house is more powerful?
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Arohi, I can.
Sir, the Lok Sabha.
Yes, sir. Looks up.
One reason because the number of members.
Sir, your voice is breaking a lot.
Okay, I'll repeat myself. Lok Sabha has higher number of members. So if there is any conflict between the two houses of the parliament, the will of the Lok Sabha will prevail because it has higher number of members. Lok Sabha has 545 members, whereas Rajya Sabha
45.
200 and how many members are there? In the Rajya Sabha? How many members are there in the Rajya Sabha?
Sir, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sir, 250.
245.
So 245, yes. Sorry, sir.
Okay. And the money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha can only delay it by 14 days. They can suggest changes, but it is up to the Lok Sabha whether they want to follow it or not. Okay. And then we have discussed about the executive, the political executive, and the permanent executive. In the political executive, we discussed about the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers, right? Okay, then we are left with judiciary. Okay, now we will return one more time to the office memorandum with which we started the chapter. So, do you remember the controversy which the controversy raised by the office memorandum, which said there will be 27% reservation for backward classes? And then the case went to the judiciary, which is known as Sahani versus the Union of India. Okay. Then the judiciary passed the order that the reservation will remain for the backward classes. Now, if the judiciary would have been under the control of any political party, will they be able to give an impartial decision? Yes, Vriddhi.
Sir, could you please repeat the question?
Okay. If the judiciary is under the control of the ruling party, or if the judiciary is under the pressure of a political party, will they be able to give an impartial decision?
I don't think.
Yes, that is why we need an independent and powerful judiciary. An independent and powerful judiciary is considered necessary
Right, sir.
for democracy, right? Because otherwise, the ruling party can inflict the decisions of the judiciary. All the courts at different levels in a country put together are called the judiciary. So in India, the judiciary at 3 different levels. We have session or district courts.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Okay, my voice is breaking. I'll repeat. Judiciary in India is at 3 levels. the session or district courts, then you have the high court. In every state, there is a high court. And then at the apex level, you have the Supreme Court. Okay. So here also it is given, the Indian judiciary consists of a Supreme Court for the entire nation, High Court in the states, district courts and the session courts at the local level. Now, India has an integrated judiciary. It means the Supreme Court or the apex court control the judicial administration in the country, and the decisions taken by the Supreme Court are bound on all the organs of the government as well as the lower judiciary. Now, the judiciary can take up any dispute. It can be between the citizens of the country, between the citizens and the government of India, between two or more state governments, and it can also be between the state government and the central government. However, the Supreme Court is the highest court for appeal in civil and criminal cases. It can hear appeals against the decisions of the high courts. Now, what does the independence of the judiciary means? It means that the judiciary is not under the control of the legislature or the executive. The judges of the Supreme Court do not act on the direction of the government. They are not bound to follow the directions of the government or orders of the government. They are independent. That means they do not have to go according to the wishes of the government. They have to go according to the constitution of a country. Now, the judiciary is also the interpreter of the constitution. The judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court, they are appointed by the president on the advice of the Prime Minister and in consultation with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Or you can say the senior judges of the Supreme Court select the judges, junior judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court, which is done on the basis of seniority. So the political executive or the ruling party or the party which is in the government does not have any interference with the functioning of the Supreme Court. The senior most judge of the Supreme Court in terms of seniority is appointed as the Chief Justice of India. Now, the Chief Justice and the judges of the Supreme Court are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. However, once appointed, it is as difficult to remove the judges as difficult as to remove the President of India. A judge can only be removed by an impeachment motion passed separately by both the houses of the parliament with 2/3 majority. And till today, in the history of India, there has not been a single incident where a judge of the Supreme Court has been removed from his office. The judiciary in India is one of the most powerful in the world. As we have discussed just before, that the Supreme Court and the High Court has the power to interpret the constitution of the country. If the judiciary feels that any law which is passed by the parliament or the legislature goes against the people, they can declare that law as invalid. Okay? So here it is also written, they can declare invalid any law of the legislature or the actions of the government, whether at the union level or at the state level, if they find such a law or action is against the constitution. So you can also say that the judiciary determines or decides the constitutional validity of any legislation or action of the government in our country. So when they declare the action of the government or the legislature as invalid, it is known as judicial review. So what is a judicial review? When the judiciary declares invalid any law of the legislature or actions of the political executive, whether it is at the union level or at the state level, if it is going against the constitution, this is known as, yes, what is it known as? Vriddhi? What is it known as? Vriddhi?
Yes, sir. So,
Yes. What is it known as?
so, I don't know.
Okay, it is known as judicial review. What?
Judicial review.
Yes. Now, the Supreme Court of India also ensures that the core or basic principles of the constitution cannot be changed by the parliament. The basic structure, the basic fundamental values which are enshrined in the constitution cannot be changed by the parliament. Now, the Indian judiciary is also known as the guardian of the fundamental rights. The power and the independence of the Indian judiciary allow it to act as the guardian of the fundamental rights, which we are going to study in the next chapter, the democratic rights. If a person feels that his fundamental rights are being violated by any action of the government, they can directly approach the highest level of the court. Now, Arohi, which is the highest level of the court in India? Arohi?
Sir, can you repeat your question?
My question is, which is the highest level of court in India?
Sir, the Supreme Court.
Yes, the Supreme Court. In recent years, in the last 10 or 20 years, the courts have given several judgments. They have heard many cases and given judgments and directives to the government of India or to the authorities to protect public interest and human rights. Now, if a person feels that the fundamental rights are being violated, whether of that person or someone else, they can directly appeal to the highest level of court. Now, this is known as public interest litigation. What is it known as? What is it known as? Vriddhi? Yes, Vriddhi. Public interest litigation. The courts intervene or interfere to prevent the misuse of the government's power. They check malpractices and corruption by public officials. That is why the Indian people have a lot of confidence in the judiciary, because the judiciary protects them from arbitrary use of their powers by the government. Okay? So, quickly, we will go through this chapter once again. You will see what we have covered in this chapter. So, the chapter is about the working of institutions. Now, the democracy is not only about electing your leaders or representatives. In a democracy, even if the leaders are elected, they cannot take any decisions on their own. They have to follow some rules and procedures. They have to work within the limitations set by the constitutions. So this chapter is about the working of institutions in a democracy. So the chapter starts with an office memorandum which was passed on August 13, 1990. How it was passed and who would have taken the decision to pass this office memorandum. The office memorandum was not an isolated event, but it was a culmination of a long chain of events. Right? So we studied about the Mandal Commission, which was appointed to determine the criteria to identify the socially and educationally backward classes and recommend steps which are to be taken for their advancement. So the Mandal Commission recommended 27% reservation for socially and economically backward classes. For many years, this recommendation was debated and discussed in the parliament, but was never implemented. But during the 1989 Lok Sabha election, Janata Dal promised that if they come into power, they will implement the recommendations of the Mandal Commission. So when they came to the power, this bill was introduced in both the houses of the parliament, and then it was sent to the president for his approval. It was signed by the president, and finally, that office memorandum takes place. But it became a hotly debated issue in the media and in the country. There were many people who supported this decision of the government, whereas others who did not receive reservation were against this decision and opposed it, because they felt that this was unfair, as it would deny equality of opportunity to those who did not belong to backward communities. So there were many protests and demonstration against this office memorandum. So this dispute was resolved by the Supreme Court, and this is known as Indira Sahani and others versus Union of India case. So the 11 judges of the Supreme Court, or we call it as a bench, heard the arguments of both the sides, and by a majority, the Supreme Court judges in 1992 declared that this order of the government of India was valid. At the same time, the Supreme Court asked the government to modify its original order so that well-to-do person belonging to backward classes should be excluded from getting this benefit. Okay? Now, why do we need political institutions? Because there are a lot of activities which are done by the government. For example, it ensures security to the citizens, provides facilities for education and health to all. It collects taxes, spends money on welfare programs, administration, defense, development programs in the country. These decisions have to be implemented. So to attend to all these tasks, several arrangements are made in all modern democracies. Such arrangements are called institutions. A democracy can only function properly when these institutions of the government are performing their function well. Now, the powers and functions of the different organs or institutions of the government are laid down in the Constitution. Now, working with institutions is not easy as it involves many rules and regulations. It involves meetings, committees, routines. This may lead to delay and complications. But in a democracy, it is also a disadvantage as well as an advantage of a democratic decision, that a democratic decision is bound to be delayed, but the decision will be taken after discussions and debates in the favor of the people of that country. So, a variety of people are consulted before any decision can be taken. Institutions make it difficult to have a good decisions taken quickly. But at the same time, it also makes it equally difficult to rush through a bad decision, so that no decision which is not in favor of the people can be taken. Right? So we have seen the three organs of the government, the legislature or the parliament. We have seen the two houses of the parliament, their composition, the different powers of the two houses of the parliament, and which one is more powerful. Then we discussed about the political executive, the prime minister and his council of ministers, the powers of the prime minister, and why he is the most powerful man in the government. Later, we discussed the role of the president in a country, especially in India, and his powers. And last, the judiciary. That why an independent and powerful judiciary is considered essential for democracies. What are the powers of the judiciary? What are the disputes which are resolved by the judiciary? And how the judiciary acts as a guardian of the fundamental rights and as the interpreter of the Constitution. Okay? Right, Arohi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's it. The chapter is over. Okay. You go through the chapter. If you have any doubts, you can contact me or you can ask me in the next class. And in the next class, we will be starting with Russian Revolution. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay. So just go through the chapter, read the chapter carefully, and do the question answers given in NCERT. I'll also send you a worksheet for this chapter. And in the next class, we'll be starting with the rise of socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And can you also inform Vriddhi about it? So that
Yes,
she
sir.
will also be prepared for the Russian Revolution.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That's it for today.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Okay. All right, Arohi.